So Rich, we've already talked about sort of the need to sort of protect your cards, right?
Yep.
The thing that I really like to think about though when I'm in the field is not protecting necessarily physically my cards in a card wallet,
Yeah.
but how I can actually protect the data that's on those cards. And there's the concept that we talk about often, and there's different ways that we're going to talk about today about mirroring data. And what do
Yeah.
we really mean by that?
Well, you want to have more than one copy. I
Right.
mean, lots of things could happen. The production assistant, God forbid, driving back could get in a car accident. You could get mugged and have your camera bag stolen while walking through New York City. You know, just about anything could happen. And so if the data is only in one place, or you're stuck on a runway for 5 hours waiting to get off of there for a plane and your crew needs to start editing. So in any case, there's lots of issues that you could run into where only having one copy of the data is pretty risky. So you want multiple copies, and a mirror, just like if you look in a mirror, it should be an exact reflection of what's there.
Right, I look in the mirror, I go, oh,
Who is that good guy?
You're a redundant copy of me, right? No,
Could you go to work for me today?
Exactly. Well, and then one of the places that can happen first and foremost is on an actual camera body itself.
Yeah.
A lot of cameras actually these days have 2 memory slots on the camera. So a lot of times you can configure the camera to either make an exact copy, to roll over, and so forth on the actual memory card slots on the camera. So that's one place. But the next place is by using some additional gadgets that you might bring with you in the field. And we have a couple different options. And one that I'm actually become a big fan of, and there's a lot of devices like this. This
Yeah.
is actually the Nexto DI box. And what this allows me to do is that it's sort of one part hard drive, another part card reader.
And computer built in.
Yeah, so on this one, for example, I can plug in SD cards, I can plug in compact flash cards. Over here on this side, I have the Express 3.4 form factor, which is popular for like P2 camera cards, for example. And all I need to do is simply take a card, snap it in there, and in just a second, the device, when I power it on, recognizes that there's a card in there, and I can simply transfer that footage from the card to the internal hard drive on this particular device.
Yeah, and what's nice as you're working with this guy here, you know, we'll just get that powered on, is that you can actually see the verified copy. So when it goes through and it runs and it does that copy, is that you see there, verified the card, it sees it, tells me, oh, there's 56 files on this card, it's an SD card.
Right.
And I've already put this card in here because I already transferred this one.
Right.
So,
But what a nice thing too is that you can verify it, which
Yeah.
is also not just copying, but verifying that your copy is in fact an identical copy, which is a nice thing to be sure of.
and what's good here is that even though the card was the same name, let's say I took this card and brought it back out and shot a little bit more, well, I put it back in, it's going to be smart enough to go, oh, there's only 10 files on here that are different. Would
Right.
you like to copy those?
Right.
Now, very simple operation. I'm just going to say, you know what, I don't need to copy this. I don't need to verify it, so I'll just go back and I could remove the card. And very easy. Once that's done, what's nice is that you can actually see the footage on here. So I could just go back and I could actually look at the material. I could preview the files, and I'll just select that there. And I'll say, oh, go off of the internal drive.
Well, that's actually a good point too, Rich, that you can actually plug in to this particular device external drives. And we'll get to external drives in just a second.
Yeah.
But you're not just limited by the data on this device or the drive size. You can plug in other drives to copy to this.
Yeah, so you can actually read other drives or dump this direct to drive. I mean, think of it this way. This is basically an alternative, really small, versus having to take a full laptop in the field. We're so
Precisely.
used to a laptop and a hard drive and a card reader, which I often have because I don't usually travel without one. But if I'm on a run and gun situation, I want something safe. The ability to put it right to the drive, the ability to go back and say, oh, let's see that video clip. Let's play that back and watch it. I'm seeing the video clip play back right on that device.
Yep.
It's great. And I have total control over mirroring things. Now, these are, I don't want to say pricey because, you know, if you think about all it is, it's a computer, it's a card reader. This is not a $100 device.
It's not, no.
So you're going to want to go out there and consider and get the right capacity. But this is kind of the top of the line if you're looking for the ultimate security. But what are some other things we could do?
Well, you mentioned the laptop, right? So if you're traveling with a laptop, the other thing to consider is something just as simple as this. This is just a FireWire portable drive. I have a USB 3 one right here. You can even get Thunderbolt portable drives these days. And the idea would be that you use your computer as a card reader. And if your computer doesn't have a built-in card reader, you might plug in a third-party card reader, right?
Now I want to talk about that because see, people are like, oh, I got an SD card built in. It's so fast. I thought the same thing, right? I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'll just pop it in. And then the other day I was in the field and I had a lot of footage to pull down. I was actually going, and we'll talk about a device like this a little bit later. I had a Drobo Mini, which is 4 drives striped together for redundancy. And I was dumping down footage from myself and a second shooter. Well, it's connected via Thunderbolt. You're like, oh, Thunderbolt, it's so fast. And I popped in the card and it was like a 8 gig card and it was like 10 minutes. I'm like, that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, especially going via Thunderbolt storage, you think it'd be pretty quick.
I was like, come on, come on. So we popped in a card reader, like the one you have there, actually that very one, USB 3, and it was 2 minutes for that same card. And I'm like, oh, I guess it could, even if you have fast storage with fast connections, maybe this isn't the fastest thing out there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're limited by the internal bus speed on the computer if your computer does have an internal reader like that. And oftentimes, they're kind of second thought kind of add-ons to the computer. So they're not necessarily going to leverage the fastest bus speeds on your machine. And you're right, Rich. In my experience, an external card reader sometimes is a little bit quicker.
Well, in my case here, it was 4 times faster. And for perspective, this is the top of the line current laptop. This isn't a couple of years old. This is like the newest shipping model. And I'm like, oh, so you mean I buy the $50 USB 3 card reader and it blows away the $3,000 laptop? That apparently that SD card is like for mom and dads with their little point and click JPEG cameras transferring 5 at a time into iPhoto. You're not that person. You have tons of data. Get a real card reader.
Right.
So there's a lot to this thing when it comes to having all these pieces, having a good workflow. We've gone through the field portion here, I think, pretty well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about next week. We're going to take a deeper look at how you could get this stuff organized for the edit, as well as how to securely transfer it when you're ready for that editorial stage, right?
That's right. We talked about all the various things from card wallets and in-field transfer devices. We've talked about card readers and plugging in cards. But next week we're really going to get into sort of the meat and potatoes of it, if you will, and talk about that workflow of copying stuff from a memory card to external drives and using additional applications to help kind of automate that process.
All right, so be sure to tune in and don't miss that second part where we explore in much greater depth how to get that footage organized and ready for edit.